3rd, 2015. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Kelly, you take the roll.
Jim Chuck.
Here.
Michael Confetti.
Here.
Christopher Enlow.
Here.
Stephen Hoffman.
Here.
Carl Town.
Here.
All right, so we're missing two of the motion. We do both in the same motion?
Motion, I'll make a motion to excuse Penny Falcone and Eric Radke, thank you. Kirk, I'm sorry.
Support? Support, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then Leslie is not gonna be here either tonight. Approval of tonight's agenda.
Move approval. Support.
Motion support, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of consent agenda, November 9th, 2015 minutes.
So moved to approve, as long as there's no changes.
Support, if there's no changes.
I'll support.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, the fact that I was not here, should I abstain?
No, as long as you read it, you don't have to.
I did read it, okay. Aye.
Comments from the public, anyone like to come up, anything that's not on the agenda tonight, which I'm assuming is here for the public hearing. Anything else they'd like to come up? 3, 2, 1. Okay, Chris, first we're gonna hear from Chris Dusen of Township Planning. We'll go forward from there on the public hearing.
First, I'll start out by giving a little bit of introduction to the master plan before we open it up for the public hearing. First, give you a little bit of background. On April 9th, 2012, the Planning Commission adopted the current master plan for the township, which is in a book that looks like this. The master plan consists of research, data, charts, tables, and graphics related to the existing land use, population, retail and office development, has a chapter on the 10-mile road corridor, industrial development, transportation, community facilities, recreation, new Hudson development, and it also talks about the means of implementation. And then the master plan culminated with the creation of a future land use map. This map, a copy of which is on the board over to my right, outlines the Planning Commission's vision for the future of the township. It conveys how much and where each category of land use belongs in the township. And the map also shows existing and proposed public facilities. And with respect to the residential development, the map indicates the appropriate density of development in different parts of the township. Now, the future land use map differs from the zoning map. The zoning map, which is part of the zoning ordinance, which is this document, tells the property owner precisely what he can do with his or her property today. The zoning map tells the property owner what zoning district his or her property is in. And based on that information, we can tell him currently what regulations apply to his property. Land use, minimum lot size, minimum setbacks, parking requirements, building height requirements, and so forth. If the future land use map and the zoning map are not in agreement regarding the use or the density of development on a particular piece of property, the zoning map takes precedence. The future land use map provides a future perspective, and in contrast, the zoning map addresses the immediate use of the property. It is the zoning map that actually conveys the property rights. As I mentioned, the current master plan was adopted in 2012. And according to the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, the Planning Commission is required to review the master plan at least every 5 years. In a fast-growing community like Lyon Township, it is sometimes necessary to review and revise the plan prior to the 5-year interval. The result of this interim review is that we're talking about this evening is the first amendment to the 2012 master plan for the Charter Township of Lyon. And that looks like this. It's a relatively small document compared to the original document. And that is what is the subject of tonight's public hearing. Like the 2012 master plan, the amendment contains analysis and maps, including an amended future land use map, which is on the screen, is also on this board to my left. The amendment focuses on 5 locations in the township, which are the Milford Road corridor, which hopefully this will work. Did for a brief second. This area here, this is 12 Mile Road, and this is the Huron Valley Trail. So this is the Milford Road corridor. The 10 Mile Road corridor, this is Napier Road, extending to the city of South Lyon. The southeast part of the township, which is basically this area in the light tan color. The vicinity of 9 Mile and Griswold Roads, that would be this area right in here. And then finally, the northwest corner of the township, up in this area. Now, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the amendments in each of those areas as being proposed. First of all, the Milford Road corridor. We see the opportunity for residential and mixed-use development in this segment of the Milford Road based on the following considerations. First of all, land use trends. The trend in this corridor, actually beginning farther south along Milford Road, is towards residential. Mill River, which is shown in this pattern here, actually set the pace for residential development a few years ago. And the proposal from Parkside Village, which is shown in this area right here, continues that trend towards residential development. Another consideration is land use incompatibility, and that's a long-standing concern in this part of the township. There's intensive industrial uses near residential uses, and that's been a long-standing pattern. Before there was serious consideration given decades ago to the relationship between different types of land uses, residential and industrial uses were allowed to develop adjacent to each other or near to each other. And so today we have land use incompatibilities that we need to deal with. Traffic and transportation is another issue that we have to deal with that is a consideration in the Milford Road corridor. Truck traffic generated by the industrial concerns is an inappropriate type of traffic on Milford Road. The intersection in Milford Road and Grand River operates at level of service E or F at peak periods of the morning and afternoon. And more residential level of traffic would be more appropriate. Another consideration are the land use needs of the township. Right now, we have in the Walbridge property about 515 acres of industrial zone land. And it will take decades to develop that amount of industrially zoned land. And on the opposite side of the coin, there's a greater need for residential land, especially in that corridor. And so the Parkside Village concept that has been proposed, that I mentioned earlier, calls for 169 acres of the Walbridge industrial property to be converted to residential development. And then the final consideration, major consideration that we looked at in the Milford Road corridor was the inability of some of the uses to conform to the current zoning. And this applies particularly to the industrial uses where we have uses that are too large or too intensive that they cannot conform to the existing zoning where they are presently located. So taking all of those things into consideration, the plan that came forward calls for a transition in land use. First of all, on the west side to a less intensive land use pattern with a mixed-use frontage. See if my pointer works. That's what this purplish color is. And by mixed use, we mean office, residential, institutional, and limited commercial, with high-density residential development to the west at 12 units per acre. The benefit of the residential, particularly from this area as well as across the street in Parkside Village, would be that it would generate housetops, rooftops, which would generate more commercial development that would benefit the new Hudson district. Also in the Milford Road corridor, the Coyote Golf Course, which prospects are that at some point in time will transition to residential development. That is shown as single-family residential at 1.25 dwelling units per acre. And as I mentioned, Parkside Village property, which is to occupy, is proposed or shown as part of the Walbridge property, is designated high-density residential mixed product. And mixed product means that there are several types of residential development that are part of that concept. So that pretty much wraps up the Milford Road corridor. The next area that we looked at, as I mentioned previously, was the 10-mile road corridor. And the primary objectives along the 10-mile road corridor were to A, adjust the density designations for existing planned developments, and B, consider the appropriate density designations for the remaining undeveloped parcels. Now, you need to be aware that the amended future land use map differs from the old one with respect to single-family residential categories. The old map on my right has two single-family residential categories: rural residential, 1 acre lots, and single-family up to 1/2 acre lots. We determined it was necessary to have a finer gradation of land use. So there are 3 single-family classifications on the new future land use map. First one being low-density single-family up to 1.25 dwelling units per acre. And that corresponds roughly to the R10 district with utilities. The moderate density single-family, 1.25 to 2 units per acre, which corresponds to the R10 district and a little bit higher density. And the high-density single-family, which is greater than 2 units per acre, and that corresponds to roughly the R0.3 and R0.5 zoning districts. The amended future land use map designates most of the land along 10 Mile Road as moderate density single-family residential, corresponding to the actual density of development. The only, there are 5 instances where the land along 10 Mile Road is not given that designation. And these are the 5 areas. First of all, single-family residential lots that are unlikely to be redeveloped or assembled into larger developable parcels are designated low-density single-family. Secondly, there are schools, the fire station, the township's wastewater treatment plant, and discharge beds and a wetland conservation area are designated public and quasi-public on the future land use map. Third, there are 2 commercial districts identified along 10 Mile Road, one at the Milford Road intersection and another opposite Johns Road, which is part of the Copperwood development. These districts are designated retail service office on the future land use map. The future land use map calls for additional commercial development on the northeast corner of Milford and 10 Mile Roads, which will be needed to serve the residential growth along 10 Mile Road and elsewhere in the township. Fourth, the Riverwood residential development on the north side of 10 Mile Road, west of Curry Road, is designated high-density, single-family. And that's this area shown with this sort of tan pattern. And then finally, high-density, single-family residential is planned on the south side of 10 Mile, corresponding to the boundaries of the proposed Brookfield plan development. And that's hard to see, that's right at the boundary with the city. It's a small development. Finally, it's important to note that until improvements are made to increase the capacity of 10 Mile Road, it would be inappropriate to allow increased density on the remaining large developable parcels along 10 Mile Road, such as Mulligan's Driving Range, Riverbank Golf Course, and the parcel west of Stone Lake West. Consequently, these parcels are designated low-density, single-family on the future land use map. The third area that we look at is the southeast corner of the township. And that's this area. And
I got it. I wrote that.
there is none. Thanks. For decades, land in the southeast corner of the township has been designated R0.5 single-family residential in the zoning map. R0.5 zoning allows single-family residential development at 1 unit per half acre. The boundaries of the R0.5 district correspond roughly to the boundaries of the Northfield School District. In contrast, the future land use designation on this land is on the current plan, or the old plan to my right, is rural residential, which corresponds to development at 1 unit per acre. Now, this conflict was merely a conflict on paper, as long as sanitary sewers were unavailable to this portion of the township, because the Oakland County Health Division requires an acre for each single-family home that is served by a septic system. Now that there's a proposal to extend the sanitary sewer, conflict between the zoning map and the future land use map is more real and needs to be resolved. In this case, adjustments to the future land use map are in order, recognizing that developers have made investment decisions based on long-standing zoning classification. Consequently, R0.5 zone land in the southeast corner of the township is designated high-density, single-family residential on the future land use map. The fourth area that we looked at is in the vicinity of 9 Mile and Griswold Roads. And as with the 10 Mile Road corridor, we had dual objectives in this study area to adjust the density for the existing or approved developments and to consider the appropriate density for other remaining vacant lands. The result of this analysis were as follows. First of all, on what's come to be known as the Hutsfield property, which is at 10 Mile, or Griswold Road and 8 Mile, which is this property right here. And that property was previously designated on the south part of it. The south 74.7 acres was previously designated moderate density multiple family for several decades. And the northerly 30 acres was designated light industrial. And so what the plan shows now is a decrease in density to high-density single-family residential. And for the northerly 30 acres, it would go from industrial to moderate density single-family. Now, the meadows of Lyon and woodlands of Lyon, which are both plans that have gone through the preliminary plan review stage, they're both planned developments. Those would be designated moderate density single family, consistent with the density that was approved for those developments. There's township owned property at the southeast corner of Griswold and 9 Mile Roads, and that would be designated moderate density single family. All other surrounding land in the vicinity, including Cattails Golf Course, would be left at low-density single-family in this vicinity of the township. And the final area that was looked at was the northwest corner of the township. The Planning Commission recognized that there are a number of parcels in the northwest part of the township that are either undeveloped or being used for agriculture and have the potential for redevelopment. Most notable are the parcels that are known as the TAP parcel, the Irwin Orchards parcels, and the vacant parcel on the east side of the Kent Lake Road south of Grand River Avenue. Upon studying the northwest corner of the township, the Planning Commission found that, like the 10 Mile Road corridor, it faces the constraints of high traffic volumes on an inadequate two-lane road system. Transportation difficulties are compounded by the offset of Kent Lake Road and Pontiac Trail, so a continuous route to I-96 is lacking. Based on these considerations, the Planning Commission concluded it would be prudent to designate the undeveloped lands as low-density, single-family residential, recognizing, though, that reevaluation of this designation may be in order if solutions to the road inadequacies were implemented. And that completes our introduction.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris?
Not this time.
So, we're not rezoning, correct?
That's right.
We're not here to rezone.
I do have one question for Chris, and I know he kind of set up, but just for an understanding of the new residential zoning designations. Chris, can you go over one more time the differences now, because we currently have R 1.0, R 0.5, and R 0.3. They're now converting to low, moderate, and high density.
Well, the low-density single-family designation is, applies to the R10 zoning designation. And that allows development up to 1.25 units per acre. The moderate density single family at the low end would correspond to R10 designation. But that allows development from 1.25 to 2 units per acre. So at the high end, it would correspond to the, closer to the R0.5 designation. And then the high density single family is greater than 2 units per acre, and that would correspond to the R0.5 or R0.2 designation.
And when you say the greater than 2 units per acre, the R0.3 was basically 3 units per acre, is that?
That's right.
That's the maximum on those. Thank you.
Leanna, do you?
Nothing to
Again, the master plan is a vision. You know, we're looking at growth trends and areas to be updated. And, Leanna, we'll open up.
So moved, to open up public hearing?
Support.
Any support? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, you know, everyone will have a chance to speak if you want to come up, and state your name and address. We all live in the township, so we're all well aware of the roads and the lack of lights here, but you can express your opinions.
Anne Marie Elmsley, 51824, 8 Mile Road. Dear Lyon Township Planning Commission, we are pleased to present you with this petition affirming this statement. The Lyon Township Board is attempting to change the 2012 master plan to allow for more residential density in Lyon Township. Our roads and water system are already overtaxed. The added density will reduce every existing resident's quality of life. Do not amend the Township Master Plan as adopted in 2012, where over 80% of the residents were in agreement that the township should be developed as a low-density, single-family residential community. Don't enrich developers at the cost of our residents. Attached here I have for you is a list of 176 individuals who have added their names to this petition, as well as additional comments written by the petition signer themselves.
Don't be shy, anyone else?
Can anybody that's here sign it if they haven't signed that one that you have that weren't aware of it?
Absolutely, and we can absolutely give you some contact information on your map.
Your name.
Steve Emsley, 51824 Mile Road. Good evening, commissioners, I'll get right to it. There's something I want to respond to real fast. Land use trends are a self-fulfilling prophecy in this township as of the last 3 years. The board has been approving things, and the commission's been approving things that many people in this township feel are now self-fulfilling, and so you hear it's a trend. Well, it's a trend that virtually nobody in this township agrees with. And so, quite frankly, when you're reviewing a trend, it's important to keep in mind who wanted that trend, who supported that trend, and how those trends came about. So we say we're reviewing this and we're looking at trends, but nobody in this room and nobody on that 179 signatures probably wanted what was going on. I'm sorry I had to respond to what I heard there. I'll carry on with the pre-planned, properly coordinated speech here. First, I'd like to talk about your new land use classifications that we find in a tiny box in this document, poorly defined. As a member of the public, these are confusing. For the example, high-density single-family, greater than 2 units per acre, corresponds to 0.3 and 0.5 with utilities. There are several problems with this wording. One, when the public reads this, most assume the lots will be a half acre when it says 2 per acre. Not that a planned development overlay will be brought in to bring the average down to 12,000 square feet, corresponding to 3.63 homes per acre, which has become commonplace in Lyon Township. 3.63, as you well know, has been approved along my fences at various spaces. No big deal. It should read, corresponds to R.5 and R.3, except when we approve plan development, which is generally what happens, if we want to be fully disclosed and honest with the public. Number 2, making a new designation that, quote, corresponds to .3 and .5 allows a developer to come into section 35 and 36, request a zoning change from R.5 to R.3 and not be in conflict with the master plan nor the future land use map. R.5 is a very common designation across the township. R.3 is a not so common designation. It shouldn't be combined for this very reason, and it opens up a hole. It opens up a door for developers down the road to downsize to R.3 and gain density without even abusing a PD. Number 3, there is simply no need for the developers as they only serve to, I have a cold. There's simply no need for the new designations as they only serve to confuse the public and provide future potential benefits to developers by adding .5 and .3 together. These amendments should be approved with new classifications. Next, I would like to talk about a map that Mr. Enlow has graciously provided for tonight's packet. I appreciate Mr. Enlow taking the time to generate this and question what is going on. With that said, let's look at the map. I don't think it's available to be put up there, but it's in your packet. In most places marked density reduction, we find places that are already built out or wouldn't be considered for a developer for dense plan development. Further, there is no actual reduction in pending homes. On the other hand, the map where it indicates density increase, almost universally there are PDs in some state of approval in the township pipeline. The land area of the increases is far greater than the land area marked decrease where no actual decrease will happen. This is important as on the surface the map looks like a lot of reduction will occur and offsetting increase, but by area that is really not the case. The increases are virtually guaranteed given what's in the pipeline, while the decreases aren't reducing anything being proposed today that I'm aware of. The honest outcome is the areas of increased density will be built out and the areas of decrease generally aren't desirable to the residential plan developments and won't be. Next, while I have problems with several of the study area changes, specifically 10 Mile, I would like to focus on the study area 3. The southeast corner of the township. From the 2012 master plan, and I'm quoting your document, over 80% of the respondents were in agreement that, by and large, the township should be developed as a low-density, single-family residential community. 2/3 agreed that the southern part of the township should be developed at a maximum of 1 house per acre. With that in mind, in 2015, this very commission wrote these words into the master plan. Section 36 and portions of section 25 and 35 are zoned R.5, but the future land use designation is rural residential. Environmental problems place development limits on the properties in this area, so it might be wise to consider rezoning the land to R1. In these amendments, we are now told that, and I'm quoting it again in the amendments, this was merely a conflict on paper. As long as sanitary sewers are unavailable to this portion of the township because the Oakland County Health Division requires an acre for each single-family home that is served by the septic system. So, one is to assume that what is said from the amendments is that the environmental issues were simply a lack of sanitary sewers. I submit that it wasn't meant to be that. Environmental issues, as much of the township would have environmental issues if that's what lack of sewer and water meant. This wording is very deceptive. I find this answer to intentionally avoid the actual environmental issues on the south side of the county. FEMA floodplains, vast MDEQ protected wetlands, priority 2 Oakland County wetlands, drainage problems, lack of perkage, and on and on. Unfortunately, the township never followed through and upzoned the area to R1.0 as this commission recommended. Now we see the ability to downzone to R.3 with this new designation that's been created. This is a complete 180 from what the commission said in 2012, and it's against the will of the public. There is no legitimate reason to change this area other than to eliminate a real conflict for 5 developers that have pending plans to build 500 homes. It is 100% without question for the developers only. Finally, the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, PA 33 of 2008, expressly authorizes city, villages, and townships to engage in planning and zoning. The act also requires the planning commission to, quote, "make careful and comprehensive surveys as studies of present conditions and future growth of the municipality." We don't feel that this requirement has at all been met by the township in the matter of these amendments. There's no need to expound upon why. Citizens often ask me, many of them in this room, what is your beef with the township, Steve Emsley? I tell them I have none and say this: developers are sly foxes, citizens are delicious chickens. I don't blame a fox for doing what foxes do, using every fox trick in the book to get what they want. But the township is the farmer. The farmer's supposed to protect the chickens, and I feel like they're leaving the gate open, and I think this reflects that they're holding it open. These amendment opens up streamlined, dense developments in large swaths of the township while ignoring the will of the citizens, the desires of the citizens' lives. It creates hardships for the citizens. It risks their safeties of the citizens and generally enriches developers. We ask that you support the citizens that you serve and vote no on the developer-driven amendments, and in doing so, preserve what's left of our quality of life in the township. Thank you.
Yay. Amen. He speaks for all of us, guys and gals.
I am Sandra O'Brien. I live at 52655 9 Mile. I'm in section 36. I have 20 acres. It is currently zoned 0.5. Some of it is wetlands, and I would like to see it preserved. But the taxes are eating us up. I kid you not, when you're on fixed income, it is getting difficult. The only way I can see, I don't know what it's called, the bog lake that's in the middle of section 36 really ought to be preserved. The golf course on 10 Mile that is increasing the number of houses there off Chubb Road. Trees cut down. My squirrel population increased from 4 to 17 last spring. They're being moved out. We have all kinds of wildlife in that lake. We are a pathway for deer from 8 Mile to 10 Mile. Even with the subdivisions going in between 9 and 10, they're still using the pathways. They have to consider the wildlife. And I can rhyme off umpteen species to you if you want to hear them. I'm fine with half-acre density. We bought this property as an investment, but I've fallen in love with it. And I don't know whether I can keep it or sell it. But I think the wildlife needs to be considered. If you're increasing the density, where are they going to go? And is that lake and the surrounding areas of it going to be preserved? You changed the 50-foot margin to 25 around water areas. It needs to go back to 50 feet. And I mean, no owning, it's a green space, no property lines up to that 50 feet. Because if you don't, people will abuse it. You will have the snowmobiles and the quads and everything else. We've had kids out with BB guns and whatever out shooting songbirds until they were told to get the heck out. And that's putting it mildly. And that's what happens when you have greater density. Yes, our property would probably be worth more if it went to 1/3 acre, but I don't know that I'm really in favor of it. Because I have fallen in love with the wildlife.
Good evening, Commissioner in residence. My name is Tony Moscone. We own Cattails Golf Club, 57737 West Menlo Road. Our family bought the property in 1989. We built the golf course and opened it up in September of 1991. So I've been here for almost 25 years. I've run the golf course ever since. I've been there growing up, mostly my adult life there, and I've seen the good times in the 90s and the Great Recession there as you drove a long time out. So I've seen all the changes here in Lyon. For our property, while the commission is looking at future and considering different zoning adjustments, I would hope that they consider our property as a transitional parcel, more specifically a moderate density. The property immediately to the south of ours is the mobile home park, the Huddle property, which I believe is considered high density. And in fact, the water feature that shows on the map is a water feature, but it's an engineered pond for the mobile home park. So that's right to our south border. On our eastern border is Consumers Powers. They operate the underground well and pump station there. So they have above ground pump that blows out natural gas. I can't tell you when it's sporadic, but when it does, that flame runs 24/7 sometimes. In our case, with a moderate density zoning approval, our property would be located in between two entirely different residential communities. We would have the mobile home park to our south with the high density, and then, as I said, that natural gas underground well to our east. And then to the north of 9 Mile, we have, I believe it's a lower density parcel that's being approved as we speak. And just as a side note, some of the benefits for this kind of stuff is not just all to the developer. So for instance, if we're able to get more of a moderate density, and I've had discussions in the past with Patty and with Laney and other folks here at Lyon, you know, the golf course, just like the previous woman says, the golf course business is tough. The taxes that we're paid on right now are tough for a negative cash flow business when you include the taxes right now. And we hired, depending on what the season is, back in the day we were over 55 employees seasonally. Now we're down to about 40, 45 employees seasonally. So we do a lot of good here for the town, but it's just tough keeping that business going with the tax burden going on. So just like everybody knows, we're getting tires kicked by other developers for the golf course. And when I come with them or I speak with them, we always try, because our other businesses, we also own Total Sports in Wixom and Novi, all the indoor facility. So I'm pretty well versed with outdoor fields and indoor fields and demand and how to operate them. And one of the thoughts I had is that if we're able to go moderate density, we could carve out a parcel of the property and put some outdoor athletic fields there, a playscape at no cost to the town. We could do that. I know the soccer clubs in town would operate that. Those soccer clubs are local soccer clubs that would be a community benefit to all the youth that have moved in here recently. We stand, as Cattails Golf Club, we stand ready to support any manner necessary the commission has studied to see if our parcel fits that moderately dense transitional property zone. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Jim Hamilton, 2400 Martindale Road. I just wanted to comment on the density on the 2012 plan is defined. It tells you exactly what you can do there. On this new plan, it's ambiguous at best. And then I've been a member of the Township since 1959, so I've seen a lot of changes. I have been to several Township meetings, planning and board meetings. The residents have expressed that the township is growing too fast and that the infrastructure does not support the population. I think that you should stop planned developments and cluster housing, follow the underlying zoning that supports a slower growth, follow the master plan that was approved by the local government 42 months ago, wait 18 months when the 60-month cycle is over, and the master plan has to be reviewed and see if the changes are needed. Thank you.
I have one other thing I forgot to say, and that is the capacity for the sewer and the capacity for the water that is presently available in the township. with all this increase in housing, what does that do to it?
You had the open house, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I didn't get that information.
okay. Yeah, Lanny reviewed some of that. We talked to him for a while.
Because you've already got a problem with people with their sprinkler systems in the summertime pulling the untreated
Right.
water into the main system. So
No, that's not true.
when they start getting discolored water coming out of their
That's
tap,
not untreated water.
well, it's not softened to the point where it's nice to look at. I've got that kind of water coming out of my well. And I'm drinking bottled water because of it.
None of it's softened. I mean, there might be iron coming through.
Well, from what I read, you've got a problem with the one well being treated and the other's not for that purpose.
Solution might
But
be-
yeah, you know, I think there has to be something done with that bog lake as far as keeping it, but we're gonna need help. People around it, senior citizens, are gonna need help with the tax structure.
Cindy Groney, 54808 Greenleaf Circle East. I live in Tanglewood. I've lived here 15 years. I see no reason to change this master plan. I don't think this township can support any greater density. Myself, my neighbors, we are not in favor of any kind of increase in the density in this township. We are extremely disappointed to see all these PDs come in, not adhering to the master plan. I have concerns about water and our availability. In the 15 years, never heard a word about water pressure, water problems. What pops up this summer in the newspaper is people need to be more aware of when they're watering their lawns, when they're using water, showering, whatever it is. That has happened in the 15 years that I've lived here. It is a direct response from the increase in the number of houses that are in this township now. When I moved in, houses were built on larger lots. I have a .42 acre lot. It's not a huge lot, but it's not a postage stamp. I don't see any reason for these tiny lots and further density in this township. I can't get out on 10 Mile in the morning and make a left-hand turn up Tanglewood.
Yeah.
When I come home, driving west towards Tanglewood, I have to be extremely careful, especially in the dark, when I'm trying to make a left-hand turn into the Spyglass Hill entrance. What was previously allowed in Woodwinds is an offsetting entrance to them. I can't tell you how many times somebody wanted to pull into Woodwind and pulled it in front of me, nearly causing a head-on. And it's not just me. So when we plan these subdivisions, these entrances into these subdivisions need to be thought out. When you put offsetting entrances in, you are creating potential car wrecks. I would hope that you would give this consideration. No greater density. We don't need it. It's not of any benefit to the citizens of Lyon Township. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elise Yost, and I'm at 54085 Birchwood Drive, and I'm off 10 Mile in Woodwind Village. And I've confusion over this wording too, and I am not for more increased density in the township. The wording, for instance, in your new master plan, they're talking about the improvements along 10 Mile and how your study showed that it'd be inappropriate to allow increased density on the remaining large developable, I can't say what, parcels along 10 Mile Road, such as Mulligan's, which I am backing up to, my backyard is facing onto. But this is moderately, it's zoned moderately density. So the study is saying it would be inappropriate to have increased density, yet it's already finding these little holes that they can change. When I bought my house and when my neighbors bought our houses, we did look at the master township plan. And the master township plan said 1 acre lots. And this is changing. And this could very well change the comps on my house, as well as change the view of what's behind me. I'm confused about that on here when it says directly that these parcels are designated low density, but then that parcel of Mulligan's is moderate density. And I'm wondering if it is because it has just recently been sold to a developer who wants to put condos in there. So which came first, I guess? What is the township plan being changed just for this developer? And I guess that's what I'm worried about and a little confused about also. So I understand that there could be things put in there, that's the way of a growing township. But what I ask is that that does not get changed on the master plan itself, but then for you to carefully consider the plans as they come forward and rezone as necessary. Thanks.
Carol Levitt, 22350 Natasha Lane. And I'm here all by myself. I'm not from a subdivision, and I care about the township as a whole. Under the Enabling Act, it is the responsibility of the Planning Commission to in fact apply its vision and apply what you do on a regular basis, reading, listening to people develop, whether they are developers or owners, whether they are people newly moved in or who have lived here for a long time, that it is your responsibility to gather the information on land use, not only within our township, but around us. What are the road capabilities? What are the expressways that are being built? Where is the water coming from? What about the wildlife? And what makes our township unique that we should look at? One is that we have tremendous wetlands, and they offer to us natural separation of properties, wildlife that you will not see in adjacent communities. Salem is saving some lands, so in fact this wildlife is there. Because of the development along 9 Mile by a particular landowner, we have seen the owls move 1 year with no place to go. So fortunately or unfortunately, I had 10 owls in my yard on 3.5 acres for a couple of years fighting because there was no food source. So you're not just talking about people and how they live, but we're talking about every level of wildlife. The deer, we had fish coming in our pond, they're gone. The fox were forced to our property. Well, that's nice because now they're in conflict with the coyote. I have coyote walking in my yards. So, as you want to build more houses, I'm going to have my 3.5 acres. I'm going to have the deer, the fox, the coyote, the owl. I'm going to have the songbirds. And I'm also going to have little kids because when I was out at 3 in the afternoon, the adjacent homeowner on 9 Mile had kids up playing on the playground unit, 3 to 5 years old, and I'm shouting, there's a coyote. And he's just walking around looking for food. There's a balance that is in the hands of the planner and the Planning Commission. And it doesn't have just to do with building houses and moving the industrial where it was developed along the railroad tracks over to the new area. Some of that is sound planning. The railroad tracks are no longer the main source of support for industrial development. However, you have to look at this more comprehensively. I see this as a knee-jerk reaction to developers. And developers aren't bad. They bring in new homes, they bring in new businesses. but to do it quickly without looking at all levels, and we've heard it tonight. We've heard about water, we've heard about infrastructure, we've heard about animals, where I have litigation that I won against the township on right to farm. Where's the farmers? I have a right to farm, and I don't see too much rural except in the new low density. There's a mention of rural. And I know we're not gonna have farms in this area and the orchards are going to go, but we still, because of the wetlands, because of how some things have been built in the past, they're not going to change. And I think that needs to be incorporated into the fact everybody is happy that we've got money, we've got developers, and they've had this money out there and now they can get it back. But that isn't how we are supposed to, as planners, that's not your responsibility. I think you need to slow down a little bit, not make it so much a knee-jerk, look at this more comprehensively, and then, all of you have great experience. Put it into play here. The fact that the library, if you go look at their site, is getting ready to come in for a millage. At the same time, the school district already is short a school. They've got one down by, is it Mill Race? But Salem has a development, so the school district is already short one middle school. And we haven't paid the taxes yet for the new one being built in our township. That should be part of your, looking outside of developers, that should be part of your consideration. That's what I'm talking about, the more comprehensive, the school. So what's going to impact us? A library millage, a school millage? We're building a bigger building department. And I'd like to see the firemen on 10 Mile in there, being paid for being in there.
Yes.
You know, I think we're asking a lot. We got some things off kilter, and I'm really glad we're coming out of the recession, but to move real quickly, I'm asking for you to be more comprehensive, slow down, and look at the bigger picture. Thank you.
John?
Would you allow me with 10 more seconds? Because something came up there. It's certainly not going to be offensive. Steve, obviously 5 minutes before I know. She said something about owls is really interesting. You know, I can legally hunt my land in the last 2 years.
Speak in the microphone, Steve.
In the last 2 years, I have always heard crazy mouse owls. As a matter of fact, they buzz the tower sometimes in my tree stand. This year, nothing. That's really interesting to me that she brings up the owls because apparently they're gone. Something this township lacks, which interestingly almost every other municipality has, is protection for wetlands that are not MDEQ protected. And that is when PUDs get approved here, PDs get approved here, basically a developer can just steamroll any wetland that is not meeting the MDEQ number, 5 acres, whatever they protect, 2.5, 5 acres. I would really ask that this township considers that the wetlands under 5 acres do bring significant value. I've lived in Northville Township my entire life, 38 years. We find land lobsters crawling through our yard and salamanders 9 inches long, spotted salamanders, and I send them to my DEQ friends and I go, are these protected, are these protected? And you know why I'm asking that. They're like, man, you're close, you're really close, really close, but that's crazy, you're finding those in Oakland County. I really suggest that the township considers protecting some of these wetlands that we're not relying on just the MDEQ because, oh, as some of the developers will say, that's just swampland. No, it's not. These are very crucial temporal swamps that do bring quite a bit of value, and people would be willing to put the money together to preserve them permanently, not developers, and open them up to the public permanently through charitable organizations and such. Last thing that I'm going to say is a little off topic. The 8 Mile road corridor. We want to divert traffic as a township down Napier, and I know there's a Chubb road paving coming soon. That's going to help relieve 10 Mile traffic. That's going to help push them down 8 Mile when we have a little capacity. We wait for 20 minutes, in fact, whatever, life goes on, everybody else waits. So that's great. We leave the traffic on 10 Mile by pushing it to 8 Mile. We can accept that. We live right on 8 Mile. But the bigger problem is the shoulders are like 3 inches wide. And I think we're all well aware Washtenaw County doesn't care about 8 Mile, and any rational thinking human being knows that Washtenaw County is not going to go and pave 20 miles. They're not going to get in with us like Northville Novi do to widen to 5 lanes. It's very unlikely they're ever going to do that. So once you overburden that road, unlike 10 Mile that you maintain complete control over with, and then at some point Novi, Washtenaw County's never going to widen that. If it gets to the traffic volumes that 10 Mile does, the disasters we see on 10 Mile today are going to be multiplied, and Washtenaw County's going to say, we have 10 residents that live over there. We can't spend $10 million widening a road. I appreciate you letting me speak a second time. I don't think anybody here is here to beat you up. I think they just want careful consideration, that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mark Zerlag, 37,000 Grand River. I'm currently serving on the DDA, have been for about 3 years, and I know that one of our biggest concerns and what we're striving for is to develop some type of downtown here along the Grand River corridor. What is necessary to help support a thriving downtown and support the businesses is you need people to shop there, you need people to eat at the restaurants and visit the cafes. And so I'm most concerned about the study areas number 1 and number 5, the northern portion of the township. Study area number 1, I noticed a change from the previous master plan. We have 2 properties, one the western portion of the Walbridge Aldermere property, and then the Mill River, which is now being changed to high-density mixed-use residential. You have an owner of a 200-acre parcel in that study area, and with a parcel that large, there's an opportunity to do planning within the 200 acres. So I would think maybe even a mixed-use type or transitional zoning from the high density to the low density might be most appropriate. Second of all, in section number 5, again, we got a challenge there with Kent Lake, Silver Lake, Pontiac Trail, and the way that those roads align. I think there's an opportunity to look at that section and see how to best accommodate better traffic through that intersection. I also think that too is a section or area all to its own that can be very unique and have something very, very special done at that portion of the property as opposed to just, just 1 acre home sites. So, other than that, again, I respect all the residents, everybody that had an opportunity to come up and speak today, and certainly feel for their position. But in certain areas of the township, it does make more sense, especially in the areas that we are trying to grow with some commercial. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
My name's Mark Weedabono, I live at 47765 Bellagio Drive in Novi. And I just wanted to talk about our senior citizens and our empty nesters, and it's an area that I think the township should focus on. The first baby boomers are reaching retirement age right now, and by 2030, the seniors in Oakland County, that population will double. By 2020, in 5 years, is projected that the 61 communities in Oakland County will have more seniors over age 65 than school-age children. Over 40% of registered voters in Oakland County are age 50 or older. So our population is getting older. And Lyon Township, I think it's important they consider a plan to deal with this coming silver tsunami that Oakland County calls it, to plan ahead for these retirees, people 55 and older, all different age groups from 55 to 85, different needs, different price ranges, that Lyon Township should plan for the citizens, because everybody in this room is getting older. So we do have to plan for that. Yes, we do have to plan for that. And the other thing is, 6 households, residents that are 65 and older, they have an average income of $41,000 in Oakland County, and they spend 92% of their money in the municipality they live in. So you want to keep your senior citizens in the township as they're getting older. It's a very important aspect. And right now, when I look, I don't see a lot of opportunity for the residents in the township with different types of products and different type of price ranges for empty nesters, senior citizens, etc. So it's something that would, Planning Commission would be worth looking at for the future. I guess that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Make a motion to close the public hearing. I'll withdraw my motion.
Thanks. Robert Swain, 59604 Sunridge. Couple things, I guess. First, on the changes to the maps. I guess trying to be as transparent and just putting everything out there as possible is always best, I think. And there is, I think, a lot of potential for confusion between mismatched multiple zoning categories versus these new land use categories like the R0.3 and R0.5 being lumped together. That I think should be a nicely drawn distinction. I also shared the amendment with some friends of mine who are studying planning right now, and they pointed out that our documents don't actually follow the American Planning Association's guidelines for a couple things, including just simple things like standardized colors, which side issue, but nonetheless, thought it was still relevant. Along with the way the process works, I guess you have to redo this at least every 5 years. And it kind of sounds like this is almost just a, hey, let's hit it now and push it through, and then we don't have to touch it. And I guess I'm not saying that is the case. I hope it's not. Because while it's fine to revise things more frequently, which, like I believe Novi's Planning Commission in their response mentioned something about commending the revisiting things before it's actually required. But there's a lot of things that seem like they haven't really been delved into to the depth that they should. I know there's a lot of work that goes into this. When I was in high school, I worked on not the current version, but the previous version of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan for the township, so I understand a little bit of the work. And there is a lot, but from the comments that I've been hearing and reading and just general consensus amongst people, it seems like there's some more work to be done on this. Even differences in the plans, like looking again at the recreation plan, different areas designated as being open spaces, green areas, both from an environmental standpoint as well as a recreational standpoint, doesn't align with the new maps. So I guess it just seems a little too rushed, and if it were to be adopted at this case, I would hope that that would not prevent continuing a further investigation to a more complete, coordinated approach, I guess.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn public.
Support.
Public hearing.
Support.
Motion support. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chris, is there anything you want to address that you're tonight?
Well, there are two things I guess I could address. First of all, on the mulligans, I think there was a mistake made on the map, and that is supposed to be low-density, single-family. So if you can make that particular distinction. The second thing is, reflecting back on our discussions here at the Plan Commission level, nowhere along the way has increase in density been a point of discussion. So I'm not sure where that information has come about, but that's not part of the discussion here. There's no change in zoning that has been put forth. There's no proposal to change zoning to R0.3 in any part of the township. It's just, has not been part of the discussion. It's not on the table. This is part of the master plan. And there's no increase in density that's proposed at this time. As far as I guess that's all I'd like to say at this point in time. I guess I'd like to respond to any questions that the Plan Commission may have.
I'll at least piggyback on what you just said about the increase in density. I guess the clarification between the master plan, the future land use versus current zoning. Whatever decision is made on the master plan, whether it's doing all these changes, some of the changes or none of the changes, it does not change what's currently proposed to us or anybody's development rights. What it is it's a tool to mold the future and try and get future developments to go a certain direction. So that's what Chris is getting at, if I'm not misspeaking here. So anything that's currently come before us, that's pending our review, it's not gonna change based on this, the future land use. It's still going under the underlying zoning. I hope that clears that up a little bit.
Leanne, did you have anything?
I just wanted to reiterate what both the Chris's have said, just the distinctions between master plan and rezoning. So the master plan is a future land use recommendation based upon certain planning principles, and it's not in itself a change of the zoning at this point, so.
Yeah, we've really tried to get in tune with the community in Lyon Township. If you look at a lot of the sections, and again, I'd reiterate, again, we're not changing, putting higher density on something. But first I'll address the issue of a lot of the property that's come before us on the new subdivisions that are 1 acre, we've held their fire to it, held their feet to the fire, and that's what we're keeping here in the master plan. We're master planning it. If it's 1 acre, we're gonna remaster plan that 1 acre. We had a lot of discussions for a long time, working on this project. The problem, the conversations we got into on the changing of for example, R1 and low density, our train of thought was, for example, that we really don't want to see master plans come in, PDs come in, and try to negotiate down below 35,000 square feet. So in our ultimate wisdom on trying to get the, and the planning commission can either agree or disagree because we talked about it at length. So that's why we actually have a maximum on that. It says up to 1.25, so you can hold their feet to the fire and say, we're not going any farther than that, period. So don't come into, and we don't want any lots bigger than 35,000 square feet. And that goes down the line. It just clarifies, it keeps it a little bit simpler, but I would have no problem going back if this township residents wanted us to go back to the R10 and the 0.5 and 0.3, 0.03. I'd be fine with that too. I mean, this would be up to the commission. But I think it just, in clarity, it made things a lot clearer so the developer knew up front, don't come in for wiggle room, where this is what it is and this is what it's gonna be. So that was that on that note. There's, when you look at your principles, and this commission has worked on it quite a bit, it's, again, it's like when we're rezoning, we're taking Griswold Road and trying to get it from Industrial 2 to Industrial 1, because there's houses across the street. We're trying to soften the blow to this township. We're trying to, everything in this master plan, we've listened to the public and did, I think, the best we could do on this. So we changed that. There's some, there's development on the borderline of South Lyon at 9 Mile, or at 10 Mile, 10 Mile. We tried to soften that and make sure that we have housing in there instead of industrial tucked behind the church that's there. And some of the density that is there, that we've allowed some of the, through the tough times, 2008, a lot of developers went bankrupt, and in order for them, the township, to get underneath, out from underneath us going bankrupt, very possible. The writing was on the wall. We had developers, in order to get the developers to build, buy the property, we had to give them a little bit higher density. So in this master plan, we are adjusting some of those areas. To make an issue specifically to the 9 Mile, 8 Mile area, again, Chris said it, spoke it very eloquently. In his map that he put on the website, it says increased density. It's not increased density. It was master planned for 1 acre, but it's always been zoned a ½ acre. We don't change that. We're just adjusting to what it is. That's what you're supposed to do. That was developed, it's a Northfield School District. It was always been, if you look back all in the history, it's always been R.05. Our job is to correct any mistakes in there and add any future in there to make sure that the master plan reflects that. It would be, we'd be delinquent if we wouldn't. And we gotta adjust these areas where we've built. And we gotta adjust the master plan to that. But we also look at the fact that we're adhering to as much as we can move to keep, let it, I mean, down the line, if it changes from 1 acre, 1 house per acre, we'll deal with it next time, or the next 10 years, or next 20 years. And I agree with listening to people coming here, you know, it'll take care of itself. As far as planned developments, they're in the books, they're on the books. We have to take care of the planned developments as they come in. They're required, if they get a 5% bonus, they get their 5% bonus. You know, so it's not for, a lot of this isn't for our view, it's in the zoning already, it's built in. So, I mean, I could go on and on about, through the whole project, but I hope I summed that up, and I don't see any, I guess maybe I saw one flaw. I'm gonna give the floor to somebody else and I'll come back, 'cause I took it.
Very good, thanks, Carl.
And just if I may add to a couple of things that Carl
Please
said as
speak
far as.
into the microphone, we can't hear you real well back here.
Sorry about that. Just adding to some of the things he said, some of the comments I heard from residents, such as the wetland setbacks and those types of things are zoning ordinance issues that are separate and distinct from this, that can be changed, but it's just a different process.
Help us then. Sorry.
Yeah, a couple things. I don't want to be redundant. I think Carl did a nice job and Chris, but a little different approach. It's tough sitting up here. And somebody brought up, I took some notes, there was a lot of good comments. It is a balancing act. However, when you look at, again, I want to clarify, there is no rezoning going on. There's two separate issues here. I've heard density and infrastructure, and every now and then I hear rezoning. That's not happening. Future plans are exactly what they mean, future. It's not etched in stone. And there is a distinction between the master plan and future land use. But getting back to what I heard, we've listened to everybody, and there's some good points brought up. But it's very, very difficult to tell the developer how to spend their money, when to spend their money. I've read some comments in the 176 people that signed it. I left Canton because I didn't want to be there and it's turning into a Canton. Well, there are growing pains in every community. And with that, decisions have to be made. I've heard from a couple people, Zone 1 and Zone 5, spot on. You know, we bring people into areas where we want to develop the downtown. I know Section 36 is another whole concern. I understand the traffic. I've been here 9 years. And I guess I've found ways to adapt. Change is inevitable. And these are the things that I guess we all have to learn to live with. So, as my colleague said, whether we go low, moderate, or high, or we go back to 1, 0.5, 0.33, whatever. The terminology, I'm okay with it either way, Carl, but I think we have done due diligence. I've heard knee-jerk reactions. I've been on this commission 2 years, and we have talked about this in length. It's not something we just popped into the limelight, so that's really all I have to say.
Great, thank you.
I am saddened also, as many of you are, as whether we've been seeing and what we think we see is going on. And we're on the front line of the development of Detroit, and it's just gonna grow. We can't stop it. Anything you say tonight cannot stop the growth of this community.
Oh, come on.
Historically, it's gonna happen. The population of the earth is increasing. We are just now on the front line of that. And we can't stop the growth, but we can control it. And we're trying to do that in the most manageable way. And I feel very bad, I look at this picture with this horse in the.
Yeah, try living here.
But it's the farmers that have held on to the 20 acres that are selling it for development. It's not us that are making that way.
You have the right to build the underlying zoning. Why change it? Why do it? Why give PDs?
That's another reason. If we ever do straight planning, not using a PD, then there'd be no extra land anywhere. They would use up every piece of property. The open space during a PD is increased. So the nature can now have spaces with lots that are smaller, but allow more space for natural resources. I don't think anyone understands that. There is a give and take to giving a PD, and we like to think that the benefit is hopefully outweighing the developer's increase of profits. Let's
Or a
just say that.
$40,000 check from White Ridge, whatever.
And if Carol would like to Sandra would like to donate her 20 acres to the nature that she'd like, I'm sure the city would be love to have that. So, like I said, we are just trying to control it, we can't stop it.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. A couple other comments. I do, in fact, think the senior population, which I am one of them, needs to be addressed. You look around, and I've run into numerous people, says, I wish it was, I don't want to leave the community, but I'm tired of 3,500 square foot, I'm tired of stairs, we don't have that. Comment was made about trends. Well, I may not know everything, but trends are usually based on historical data. And I know Mr. Zerlag is in the real estate business. Mr. Dusen made the comment, we've got 515 acres that have been sitting there for how many years? And it looks like the outlook for the future is it's going to continue to sit there. So I think there is value in trends. I don't think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy by any stretch of the imagination. And I think if you look at the past years, and I know there's people who've been here 30 or 40 years, probably would indicate that that land's going to be sitting there another 20 or 30 years. It's not one. Heavy industrial is downsizing. It's on the way down. It's never coming back. So we got to do something with that. I think it's a smart move. I think it builds where we want to go east with the industrial piece. We want to come west with the transition and the mixed housing and rooftops. So my last comment. Thank you.
Well, I don't know, I had about a dozen or so comments based on public comments, but the first one I'm gonna say is gonna be my dumb question, and it's been bothering me for years, because I used to work for a municipality, and we would run petitions, and I guess it's mostly for the attorney, is the legalities. This isn't to take anything away from what's been presented tonight, please don't misinterpret that, but I really gotta know is the legalities of an online petition versus a hand-signed petition for verification of signatures. And
in this case, I don't, the petition is just indicating public interest, so to speak, but it's not for any legal purpose here. So as far as a verification of online versus handwritten, so.
okay.
So I guess I'm not following.
Just vote.
Well, I guess the reason for the question is just because of my past experience working with municipalities, and when there was a petition that had to be changed, it had to be handwritten signature verifications with the clerk. I know times have changed since then, and this was a good 8 to 10 years ago. But that was my dumb question.
I think for like elections.
Since my wife presented it, I can tell you.
Online is not sufficient.
I can't validate 30% of those signatures, but I can tell you that I can validate 70% of them if you want hand-signed legal stuff. The point of the petition.
It's nothing
the
about
spirit
that.
of it.
The point of the petition
It's just a
wasn't,
question.
the point of the petition
It's
wasn't
a
to tell you
question.
that I'm recalling people, so this is legit. The point of the petition was, here's who's interested. We can validate 70% plus of those signatures.
No, I don't
We're
think
good.
it needs
I don't think it needs to be
questioning
done.
that.
It was just more of a legal question.
And if we pushed at it hard, we could probably get 1,700 signatures. That was just put up in link.
All right, as we go on with the comments, this will probably be in a fairly random order based on how I was taking notes. We know we're not going to be able to make everybody happy, particularly with the PDs. And as Mr. Hoffman kind of said, with the PDs is the benefit of the PD is to have a 20% open space, which leaves room for the obviously the wildlife that's out there. Developing to the underlying zoning leaves 0% open space, while it does yield larger lots. So it's up to the individual homeowner who purchases those lots to maintain its wildness, or they can turn it into lawn, which unfortunately has happened out in Green Oak Township and a couple of their larger lot subdivisions. So that's where I know not everybody's going to be happy whether we look at fees or not. The water system was mentioned. The water from the township, our engineer, township engineer's not here, but as an engineer myself, and I've looked at this stuff in the past, the treatment, it's all being treated. There is just a lack of the rust removal system during peak hours. So that's where you get the rusty water and you get the stains, the orange stains. And those of us with wells like myself, we have that every day and have to do some special softener and rust remover salt and filters and all that fun stuff. But it is healthy. It's this one kind of goes to Chris Duzen too. It was mentioned the right to farm. Is that specifically addressed within the master plan or in any of these amendments? Or is it just, I know it is a state law, but is there a particular zoning regulation or does it always have to be grandfathered in?
No, the R10 zoning classification does allow farming as a principal permitted use. So it is permitted in the township, and there's no change, of course, with this master plan amendment. I will say that the fate of farming in Lyon Township was sealed decades ago, when most of the land in the township was zoned to 1 acre zoning. And it's been demonstrated and researched far and wide that 1 acre zoning is not an effective way to preserve agricultural land. It really has to be kept at 40 acre zoning to have any degree of hope to save agricultural land. So any thought of really preserving farming, that went away a long time ago when 1 acre zoning was instituted across the township.
And as kind of a follow-up to the senior housing's been brought up, and knowing that there's only a couple spots where we really have that being developed, is there any way to address that within the master plan? I mean, do we have to specifically list senior housing in certain residential zoning classification? Is that more of a zoning change versus?
No, I think that's something that we probably want to do at some point in the future, is look at the senior housing and the empty nester market and see how that can be incorporated into the overall plan for the township. I think it has to be addressed both in the plan and in the zoning. So I don't think that necessarily has to be done as part of this amendment, but I should address this at this time, but this amendment is not meant to take care of the obligation that we have in 18 months or 2 years to do a comprehensive review of the master plan. This is a very specific purpose in mind with this amendment, and the comprehensive review will still take place in 18 months or 2 years of the master plan, and that would be a good time to take a thorough look at the senior housing and empty nester market.
Well, I guess we'd also have a list of, and I'm sure people can see on their agenda, of pending projects that have been presented to the planning commissioner or slated for future agendas. Just to let everybody know, it is kind of intimidating seeing some of those developments and the number of homes and number of acres. But anybody at any time can come in and present something to the planning commission. They pay their fees and they come and give us their spiel. But by no means does that mean any of these are getting approved at this level, or if it's a PD, getting it approved by the board level. So just to let people know, because I look at that list each meeting and see it keep growing and growing, and wondering if any of these guys are even coming back after they've been in front of us. I did like the comment about the wetland setbacks going from 25 feet to 50 feet. That's kind of that wouldn't be addressed in the master plan, but it could be definitely in the zoning amendment, I guess, or an ordinance amendment in the future. Perhaps that's something we can look at if, in the future, if my other commissioners are open to that. And I guess my last comment is just the fact that it's nice to see a lot more people here than when we went through this back in 2012, when we first put this together. I know I've been out here in the township for about 11 or 12 years now, and we came out, moved into an existing subdivision, and came out here basically for the schools. And since our schools are so good, and it's just attracting more people to move out here. And, you know, we're doing our best to control the growth, and hopefully we do a good job. I liked a lot of the comments, and my map here that hopefully was helpful. Maybe I didn't quite use the correct terminology on some of these, but I think there's a little bit more to do as far as tweaking a few of these parcels based on the public's comment and based on a couple little spot areas that I see on here that, for instance, the Mulligan's parcel was mentioned, and then there's just a couple little like isolated parcels near Walnut Creek, and
Cattails, you mentioned.
Cattails was mentioned for further discussion, and also the Cook Auto and John Deere up off of Pontiac Trail. There's just a few little more parcels that I think that we need to discuss.
Thanks, Chris. Carol, do you have anything to add?
No.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
one last question.
Sure.
So, based on what Chris just said, now I'm talking to Chris Dusan, we can go forward with this, but we can still talk about all those little issues and parcels that you just mentioned, correct?
Yes.
A lot of good comments tonight. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I too, I lived out here at the high school in South Lyon, so we could go back to those days, it'd be pretty nice. But unfortunately, with the growth and the large parcels, I mean, people do have property rights if they want to sell the property to developers or to a nature conservatory, you know, I mean, that's their option. But again, it's pretty much what you've been told. We try to control and shape the growth here, and again, we're not rezoning. But we do put a lot of time and effort into this. We had an open house here earlier this month, and I know a few of you were here for that to get your input also. We appreciate that. If there's anything else to add?
Well, we're two commissioners short tonight, so I think I'd like to hear their comments too, but.
Well, we can
And I
still-
know we have a few things to tweak, and probably identified several parcels that either, not necessarily that I'm not in favor of, but just that drew my curiosity that we can talk about too. And just some time to digest these comments and.
Alright, that's one side. If we do go forward, can we address some of the what we're calling tweaks?
Yes, you can do that.
What's the opinion of it?
I will point out you do have a forum,
You do?
and the state act requires a majority vote of the planning commission to approve a master.
So it'd be the majority, including the two absentees, you're saying?
No,
Or just a majority of,
have to be three that voted for it.
Majority of the planning commission as a whole.
as a whole? So we need four.
Chris, do you disagree with that?
I would have to look it up. Because my app is,
just Wade's looking that up, but just, some of the things that we looked at over a course of a long time was well over a year, probably year and a half, is pretty much spelled out to us on describing the existing strengths and how you're gonna preserve those strengths. That's what we looked at, some of our guiding principles, and providing a comprehensive geographical projection of the future land use, which is very vital, you know. Again, it's a moving document, it's pretty difficult to hit it on the head. There's not a lot of movement, you know, you think they are coming in, but again, it's the overall zoning that really tells you how to build it. If you do major changings on the zoning, then you get some major movements, and then you have to adjust that in your next master plan, just like we've done in some of the areas in this master plan. The only changing has been the developments that took place, you know, whether it's, like I said, industrial 2 to industrial 1, or there were some bad times where we had to give them higher density. We changed that. We changed that on our master plan to show where exactly what it is now, because that's what we're charged to do, and that's our duty to do that. Then long-term orientation with short-term elements addressing existing problems. That's what I was just talking about, if there's problems out there, and objectives. You know, if you can, you know, listen to the general public, and look at the problems, you know, and try to make adjustment to that. You don't want some of these areas that we're holding their feet to the fire on 1 acre lots, we want them to stay 1 acre. You know, so we can address that right now. Some of it we couldn't address because the zoning is there. I don't know how it changed or it ever did change, I don't know, I'm not privy to that, how many years ago back. But the property that we have now that we deal with, we're trying to keep it as, to the master plan as much as possible. And the only thing that would change that is if somebody came in with a PD, and we can't control that. Just hold them to the PD, so. I
You
just
can
wanted to
deny a
give you
PD all
that
day.
little insight.
Thanks, Carl. Chris, would you?
Yes, it's, a majority of the total commission is required, so you would need 4 votes or affirmative votes to pass it.
Okay, all right.
I think it would probably be a good idea to go through those particular parcels this evening and try to hash it out.
If we could, let's try that.
You see.
There's nothing else on the agenda, so.
Well, let's start with the naming of low density, moderate density, and high density.
Well, let me tell you where the 1.25 comes from, first of all.
Trying to wear people.
1.25 units per acre. And I think that might clear up some of it. In our zoning ordinance, it's been this way before I was here, so it's been here for at least 30 years. It says that in the R10 district, the minimum lot size is 1 acre. If you have utilities, minimum lot size is 35,000 square feet, which works out to 1.25 units per acre. That's where the 1.25 units per acre.
I know, I just wanted the public to hear what it is.
Now,
I think the public's done.
that applies to conventional R10 zone district as well as a planned development. So that means that if you have a conventional R10 district that has utilities, they can develop at 1.25 units per acre, period. And that applies across the board, as I said, whether they have
Well, the PD or not.
or not.
Right, so that's why we looked at it and said, this is a foolproof bullet here.
No, it's not.
That we can't, you don't have to worry about a PD, somebody coming in and get a density bonus or wetlands or anything else. We're telling them in this future land use that it's, you cannot build more than, less than 35,000 square feet.
It's such a lie.
I have to reemphasize that that is not a new provision that's been in the
Right,
ordinance
right.
for decades.
But this spells it out,
Right.
clear, flat.
I do think it could use a little more work though, defining it like you just kind of said there, that's all. Especially on the high density one, because we're saying it does correspond with our 0.3, but we said that it's a maximum of 3 units per acre. I guess just a little bit of wordsmithing in there would help, so we're absolutely locked in.
Okay.
And what about the moderate? I know the answer to my question, but I just need to have everybody understand it. And I'm talking about even on this plan commission.
The way the moderate density came about, is looking at the 10-mile corridor, basically.
Rigo.
And looking at the density of development that resulted, on planned developments in particular, as a result of, what happened over the last 10 years with the Great Recession and the concessions that the township had to give to get rid of property that came back to it, as a result of, foreclosures. And, so there was some increase in density on those parcels of land along 10-mile road where, the land was foreclosed on, the township got the land, possession of the land with taxes due and high special assessment district, assessments owing. And, in order to facilitate the transfer of that land to developers to get it off the township's books, there was a density increase of some nature for a number of those parcels. And that density increase ranged from over 1.25 but under 2 units per acre. And that's how we got that range for the moderate density single family.
Which is 0.05 anyway, 0.5 anyway. So it addresses, not only just leaving it at, if it was left at 0.5, it wouldn't indicate exactly what that district is, 10-mile corridor is.
Right. It would not.
And
Because
it's,
it wasn't developed at our 0.5 density.
correct.
It was developed substantially under our 0.5, but it was over 1.0 density.
So with the indication of moderate density single family, with the restriction of no more, at 1.25, with the restriction of no more than 2 houses per acre, just the word itself would, the moderate density would suffice the extra density in the 10-mile corridor?
Say that again?
The wording of moderate density, that would suffice for the density that's there now, not the future density.
Right.
But the stipulation of no more than 2 houses per acre going forward spells out exactly what you can do.
Right.
Which is the same as 0.5.
Right.
Okay.
Are you happy with that, Chris? Good.
Now let's deal with high density. Let's spell that bad boy out.
The high density are the highest density single family areas in the township. So they go above the R 0.5.
why?
So we're dealing with the 0.3. Replacing the 0.3,
Well,
which gives you three,
not necessarily, it's,
no,
Make gray, just keep to it.
no, because, there are areas that are high-density, single-family that are going to be R 0.5. Because the way I would characterize it, moderate density, single-family is R0, R.1. And it reaches as high as R 0.5, but not quite. Because if you look along the 10-mile road corridor, as I explained, the moderate density single-family classification is really based on what really happened in the 10-mile road corridor. And it never really got to the point of being our 0.5 density, but it got, in some cases, close to it. So the moderate density classification is from R 1.0 to something under R 0.5.